When local officials clear out a homeless encampment, it's their duty to safeguard the belongings they collect during that sweep. But a new ProPublica investigation documents that in Portland, the possessions are only returned to their owner about 4% of the time. So today on CityCast Portland, ProPublica reporter Nicole Santa Cruz is here to discuss their investigation into how these storage systems in Portland and other cities across the West Coast often fail those they're designed to help, and what impact these policies are having on Portland's unhoused community. It's Tuesday, January 14th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Well, everyone in Portland knows about the occasional sweeps to clear homeless encampments that we do, but a lot of people might not know about what happens next. What happens to all the stuff that is collected during these sweeps? And you've been looking into this because I know every city's different.
Yes, definitely. Every city is different. And Portland is actually a place where their encampment policies are fairly developed. There's a lot of procedures that they have to follow. And one of those procedures includes storing property after an encampment removal. So workers are trained to distinguish between trash and belongings, and they try to store everything that they think that a person would need to use. The city even goes as far as purchasing a special clear trash bags so that once they store the property, people can kind of see what's inside once it goes to a very large warehouse to be stored.
Yeah, but yet I know your reporting showed that only about 4% of these possessions get returned to their owner. Now, how does that compare to other cities that your team looked into?
So Portland stores the most out of any of the 14 cities that we looked into.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super apparent. We traveled to Portland, we toured the warehouse, we saw that they're definitely storing people's belongings. And it's a low retrieval rate, but in some places, people don't actually grab their stuff ever. So in the city of Anaheim, we received records from them, and no one had retrieved their things. San Francisco's a little bit better, but across the board, it's fairly low. People are not clamoring to retrieve their belongings from these storage facilities.
So you're saying the reason they're not getting returned to the owner is because the person is not coming to get them?
Yes. So the onus is on the individual to come and retrieve their belongings. And as you can imagine, if you're living outside, there's a lot of logistical barriers present when you're trying to figure out maybe where your stuff has gone. If you don't have a cell phone, you can't contact the warehouse and say, hey, are my belongings there? If you don't have transportation, it's going to be difficult to make it to the warehouse. If you don't have a place to put your belongings, what are you going to do with the bags that you get? There's a lot of barriers for people, which leads them sometimes to not even try to retrieve their belongings.
Yeah, and how long does their stuff get stored? Is it just there forever, or do they have a limit?
In Portland, it's 30 days, and it ranges in the different cities that we looked at from 30 to 90 days.
Well, a lot of your team's reporting focuses on the story of a Portlander named Stephanie. Now, how did this experience end up affecting her? And the reason I'm asking this is because her story isn't unique.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that Stephanie's story is unique. I think that one of the things about living outside in the world that we're in right now with camp removals is people will experience camp removals multiple times. And I think people underestimate how traumatic these camp removals can be for people. Someone is showing up and they're starting to throw what you see as all of your worldly possessions into a truck. And so this can be really traumatic for people. They experience it multiple times. In Stephanie's case, she had been in a place near a creek for quite some time, and that had provided a little bit of stability for her. But after the removal, she really had to start all over. She didn't have her food stamp card or her cash.
They took her money and her card as well?
Yeah, so she came back to her encampment and her purse was not there. Her food stamp card was inside her purse. And so, yeah, so she's going down to basics of what she needs to survive. She's like, I need food, I need a place to sleep, I need a sleeping bag or some sort of blanket. And in the days after that removal, she slept on a sidewalk for the first time. She told us that she had attempted suicide, and she said, quote, I had nowhere to go, no place, no tent, no nothing. I couldn't even feed myself. The lowest point I've ever been in my life was after the sweep. So these can have devastating consequences for people.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine setting up somewhere that you think is secure and then feeling that security enough to leave something important in the camp and then you come back and it's all gone. Especially, I mean, don't they have to have notices or don't they have to give you like a warning like, hey, we're coming at this day or like in 2 weeks, all your stuff is going to go away. Is that something that occurs or do they just strike and you don't know?
No, they do not strike and you don't know. I think in rare circumstances like a flood or a fire or I think law enforcement can also perform emergency abatements, but I don't think those are super common. So yeah, the contractors from Rapid Response have to provide 72 hours notice. They do post notices, which give them 10 days to complete the removal. So sometimes people don't know like when rapid response is actually going to come. And in Stephanie's case, she had a large encampment. So workers had to come over several days. So I think it's tough when you are trying to determine like to what to dispose of and what to keep when these workers are trying to determine this. They don't always know what someone really needs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, what local officials are saying about the homeless encampment sweep storage system. It's your last chance to see Exquisite Creatures Revealed, an exhibition from local artist Christopher Marley, on view at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry until February 17th. Don't skip out on this rare opportunity for a close-up view of 10,000 rare specimens from around the world, which include a 10-foot-long spider crab and a whole preserved reef shark. Audiences are calling this exhibit one of the most beautiful they've ever seen and a truly magical experience. So this is definitely one experience you do not want to miss. You can see Exquisite Creatures Revealed at OMSI until February 17th. Get tickets today at omsi.edu. That's omsi.edu.
CityCast Portland is brought to you by Diamore Law Group. Let's face it, sometimes bad stuff happens. A serious injury, a catastrophic accident, or even a wrongful death. It can turn your world upside down. When it does, you deserve unwavering support from a dedicated team. Yep, you need a lawyer. Diamore Law Group has over 30 years of experience protecting the rights of Oregonians. Their team of skilled attorneys, led by distinguished trial attorney Tom Diamore, will work tirelessly to make sure your voice is heard and your rights are protected. Here's what one of his clients said. Tom fights for his clients from the first day they meet him through the last day of trial. If you or a loved one needs help holding those responsible for your injuries accountable, contact Diamore Law Group at 503-222-6333 or visit diamorelaw.com to schedule a free consultation. They are committed to fighting for the justice and compensation you deserve right here in Portland.
So I know that back in 2022, the city settled a class action lawsuit when contractors illegally discarded people's personal belongings following some sweeps. Now, what sort of response did you get from officials when you asked them about those policies recently?
Yeah, officials say that they understand that these camp removals can be traumatic for people, and they say that they're trying to kind of balance the rights of people experiencing homelessness with the community needs and public health and safety needs. And in Portland, the officials say that they put a lot of time and energy into their database of stored property. They told us that they really do share in the collective frustration and the difficulties of managing this system, and they want to manage a system that works well for everyone.
Yeah. You know, let's talk just real quick. This class action lawsuit that happened in 2022, is this what set the 30-day limit?
I don't believe that set the 30-day limit. The 30-day limit was set back in 2014 with the a lawsuit known as Anderson versus the City of Portland.
Gotcha.
And there was a settlement agreement called the Anderson Agreement that actually spells out how the city can conduct encampment removals and mandates things like notice, storage. There's also a provision in there that the city photograph confiscated property as well.
Yeah. And is that very particular to Portland, or is LA doing this too? Or I'm understanding the Anderson Agreement was just to our area. So because I know that it also affected our encampment laws, our camp sweeps, and also where people could camp. I know that was basically our entire tenure of our mayor. It felt like he was trying to fight that law. He was trying to figure out a loophole. So I'm just curious, is that just Portland, or are you noticing this struggle in other cities as well?
No, this is a struggle in other cities as well. Like Los Angeles has had ongoing litigation regarding the sweeps for decades. San Diego also has an agreement that was born out of a lawsuit that kind of dictates how they can perform these, they call them abatements, and also dictates kind of how things should be stored. So this is not unique to Portland. The thing that is unique to Portland is there has been a lot of time and energy spent on setting up the storage facility, the special bags, maintaining a database of the stored belongings. It seems like Portland has really developed a lot of these policies. And I do have to say, in the cities where lawsuits have kind of spurred storage programs, the local officials are always trying to see what they can do. They're always trying to test the boundaries of the law.
Is it fair to say to see what they can get away with, or is that too malicious? Like they're trying, like they're just there twiddling their mustaches. Because in my experience, city workers are just trying to do their job, and they're trying to do the best they can in their job. But when you think about these laws that were put in place to protect people, sometimes it feels a little malicious if you're trying to skirt that law. You know what I'm saying?
I think it can feel malicious, but I can't really comment on, what local officials, what their intent
Oh, yeah,
is.
yeah.
I think it definitely feels like cities are just always trying to figure out, what can we do that's legal? But on the other hand, also, these city officials are always are hearing from constituents who are saying, hey, they're constantly complaining about encampments or tents, tarps, etc. They're complaining about the visible homelessness that they see.
Of course, yeah, because it is an issue. Here's the deal is that the reason I asked about, that struggle between them trying to find that line in the laws for them to still be, within the scope of the law is because they don't get it right, because they're trying so hard to appease, in a sense, so many interests that lawsuits will occur because they're not following the letter of the law, or they're not being firm enough, all these things, And in those instances, I know it happened in Phoenix, Los Angeles, San Francisco. I know you were bringing these cities up. Are these lawsuits brought up by the actual people whose belongings were taken illegally or whatever? Are those lawsuits leading to any significant changes?
I think they're definitely leading to these more developed encampment policies that in spirit, these encampment policies are supposed to protect the property rights of people who are living unsheltered. I think there's sometimes a disconnect between a policy and then how that policy is enacted on the ground.
Well, Portland has a new mayor. I don't know if you know about our new
Yeah.
mayor, but he is one of the most optimistic people that I think I've met concerning Portland and our future. And his number one issue is just ending unsheltered homelessness. Not homelessness, because I think when people hear the word homelessness, they just think like all of it. And I'm like, no, unsheltered homelessness. So we don't have those interests competing against each other. The dignity of a person and then the functionality of a city. So clearly, Portland still has a long way to go. What have you heard from researchers about how cities like Portland can make these types of programs more humane, more effective?
I think it all comes down, I've heard from advocates and researchers that the more communication, the better. There's not going to be a quick fix. There's no silver bullet when it comes to clearing encampments. But what I have heard is that the more that you connect with the population who is living outside, the more you listen and speak with them about what they might need, the better. And I think there's different ways to do that, whether it's sending caseworkers out, not at a removal, but sending caseworkers out in an atmosphere that is calm and not when you're saying that you're going to take their stuff or remove their encampment, to really assess their needs. Or, I mean, think about it. If you are talking with people and trying to get them some adequate shelter and adequate housing, then you don't need a large storage facility for their belongings because they're going to take their stuff with them, or you're going to work with them over a sustained period of time to help them determine what they would like to take with them and what they would like to throw away.
So you're saying we would be almost like erasing certain issues that we're struggling with at this point. We'd probably come up with new ones, but like this one in particular.
I've spoken with advocates who have said, like, we have these storage programs because we're coming in and we are removing encampments without any meaningful place for people to go. What if we create places for people to go?
That's too revolutionary, Nicole. Don't.
I mean, I think this is a tough issue, and I've heard from people who work on policies to, best practices for encampment removals. They say, this isn't going to take a week. The Benioff Homelessness and Housing Initiative has like a best practices guide. And like, they say that this can take like 8 weeks to, remove some of these encampments. And that's really tough when you have limited city resources, limited housing. These are tough issues.
Yeah. I just wanted to kind of pull a thread of something you mentioned because it's something that's come up in Portland. And you said, hey, the people who are helping find shelter, find resources to those, in these encampments, they can't be there when the encampments are being cleaned out. Like, why is that?
They can't be there when the encampments are being cleared because it's a traumatic experience.
Okay.
When we were doing our reporting, we came across some people who had just, rapid response had just been there. They're shaking, they're crying, they're trying to figure out where to go. Sometimes they've got all their stuff with them. I saw a woman dragging a tent across the street. Like, this is not just like this calm, neutral experience for people.
The reason I ask is because we have the Portland Street Response. I'm sure that it came up in your reporting.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big conflicts, like right at the very beginning, and there were many because they were under the fire department, is that they wanted them to come out to these sweeps. And the people in the Portland Street Response, the workers were just like, we can literally not do our job if you associate us with these sweeps, because then we'll not have any trust in the community. We won't have any, basically any like cachet of any sort. And so your researchers are basically saying like, that is true. That has to be completely separate.
It needs to be separate. You need to build relationships. Law enforcement shouldn't be part of this unless like absolutely needed. I guess one of the takeaways that I've had from speaking with people is that you need to talk to the population who's living outside, communicate with them as much as possible, determine what their needs are, and ask them what they need, talk to them.
Well, Nicole, it's good to know that people like you are looking into it and there's actual research that is happening, that is going on. And thank you. Thank you for taking the time and talking to us about this.
Thank you for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend, rate or leave us a review. It really does help us out. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim.